So one of the hostages that came back now in the last release of the 20 hostages was a fellow called Matan Angarest. He was the tank driver. One of his commander was Daniel Peretz, who was killed. All the other soldiers in the tank were killed, and Matan was the driver. And the way the tank is organized, there's a protection for the driver, and he wasn't killed with the anti-tank missile, but they took him hostage. And because he was a soldier, obviously a tank driver, they really gave him a hard time. To the extent, I believe they brought a car battery to electrify him. They really beat him. The Tzpaniot, the women, the soldiers who were taken from the Nachal Oz base, those who viewed the happenings in Gaza, who were with him, they testified to how terribly he was treated. So the Shliach in Kiryat Tivon, I think it's called, where he comes from, did a lot of positive spiritual things with the family for his release. One of them was that he said, we have to add a name. We have to add a name. And they added the name Shachar, which means morning, which means like, then, like it says in Tehillim, then, I'm sorry, it doesn't say, it says in the prophets, Az yibaka kashachar ercha, then your morning will shine through, your light will shine through like the morning. So what is this about a name? We see there's a tremendous significance to a Hebrew name, and we see it in this week's Parsha, where Abram and Sarai were not able to have children, and Hashem says, Avram, yes, you and Sarai can have children, because that's what you see in your astrology. That's true. But Avram can have children and Sarai can't have children, but Sarah and Abraham will be able to have children. And Hashem took the Yud from Sarah's name, divided it in half, which means Yud is 10, gave 5, which is a Hey to Sarah, 5 to Abraham, and now they're able to have a child, and they have Yitzchak. It's interesting that the Hey to Abraham came from Sarah. Sarah not only becomes the source of her own Hey, her own name, but also that of Avraham, and together they're able to have Yitzchak. We see in general that the Hebrew letters are actually the building blocks with which Hashem energizes, infuses the world with life. And so therefore our names actually are extremely significant. It's not only that the parents have a prophecy to know what name to call, which matches what's going to happen to the child. It's actually the source of giving the child a leg up to be able to be the best they can. And the letter Yud is considered a male letter. It's a small little letter, like the seed, and that can't give birth to children. For children, you need to have a Hey, which is an expansive letter. It spreads in all directions. And interesting that all the foremothers had a Hey except for Rachel, and Rachel couldn't have children. And then she says to her maidservant Bilhah that by Bilhah marrying Yaakov, that will enable her to have a child as well. And Bilhah actually, says the Rebbe Marash, the fourth Chabad Rebbe, has 2 Heys. So she says, I'll be built through her, my Hey and your Hey. So what this tells us practically is the significance and importance of the Hebrew name. And because of that, when someone is very sick, you would add a name. So maybe the mazel will change through the additional name. It's not something to be done lightly. It's not something to be done regularly. But it also tells us how important it is to name, for a name of a leader in the Jewish people, a family member, greatly respected, to the extent that there's a whole question if the name you want to name a child is a name that some people have it positively and others negatively. There's a famous joke of a couple coming to the rabbi and saying, Rabbi, we're having a fight. What is it? He says, he wants to name the child after his father and I want to name after my father. So the rabbi says, what's the name? They said, Moshe. And your father? Also Moshe. So what? So the rabbi said, why don't you want to name after his father? He says, because his father was a scoundrel. My father was righteous. So the rabbi says, fine, name him Moshe. If he'll be a scoundrel, you named him after his father. And if it's he'll be a righteous, it's after your father. There is some truth to that. When we give a name to a child, let's say you have a great name, Moshe, Avraham, Nachamendel, names after great tzaddikim. But it happens to be that the individual person that you're naming after, the father, was not the greatest person. So the authorities say you have in mind, you could give him the name of the father, but you have in mind that you're thinking of, when you give the name, that this is for the tzaddik that had the same name as well. And when you do that, then the energy that comes to the child will come from this great tzaddik as well. The bottom line is, names are important. When we give our child a name, it's a prophecy, but it needs a vessel where the prophecy can reside. It's important that we name after righteous and good people. It also means we should use our Hebrew names. Our Hebrew name shouldn't just be something that we use for our ketubah when we get called up to the Torah, or making a mishaberach if someone is sick. We should use it. It should become the name that we use. You find many people, when they get closer to Yiddishkeit, one of the things they do is actually take on the Hebrew name that they always had, that was dormant, that was hardly used. They use that name on a regular basis because that accesses them to an energy of their soul that maybe they didn't even know they had. It really lifts the person. It changes the person sometimes. The Talmud tells us 4 things nullify a terrible decree. Charity, prayer, change of conduct, and change of name. Now we can understand charity, prayer, and change of conduct. These are all transformational things. We're changing as people by doing it. So we can understand why that would nullify a decree. But why changing a name? It's just technical. So the Rambam says, when we say change a name, it means I'm saying that's not me. I'm not the person who did that terrible thing. The thing that I'm trying to transform from, that's not me. I'm someone new. I'm a new reality. But it's more than that. It's also the fact that we change a name, using our Hebrew name, that we plug into our soul in a much more direct way, in a more obvious, direct way. So, it's sometimes hard to tell everyone I'm going with my Hebrew name now, but you start Shana Shabbat. When you go to shul, in this environment, this is my name. At home, this is my name. Even if you don't change it in your work, in your business and profession, start by utilizing your Hebrew name in your Jewish environment at least. That's one way to start. And then the blessings will come together with that.